all of our phenomenal viewers, listeners, and supporters. I am your host, Brianna, podcast Bree Harris, and I am so excited to be here. If you're a new audience member, we are so grateful to have you. Welcome to another episode of Connected, where we discuss all things mental health, recovery, employment, and stories. Today's guest is a dedicated social service worker from Utah with over 2 decades of experience supporting individuals living with mental illness. She earned her Bachelor's of Social Work from the University of Utah and has made significant contributions to the mental health community. She served as the Associate Director and Interim Executive Director at Alliance House in Salt Lake City, where she also coordinated the Transitional Employment Program and trained staff and members from over 30 clubhouses worldwide. Amber is now embarking on a new chapter as the Employment Program Officer at Clubhouse International, where she continues to enhance employment outcomes for individuals living with serious mental illness. Join us as we uncover how Clubhouse's Transitional Employment Program not only provides employment opportunities, but also fosters confidence, independence, and a renewed sense of purpose for its participants. Please welcome Amber Weber.
Yay.
Okay. Welcome, Amber. How you doing?
Good, thanks, Brianna. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I can't complain. Like we said, it's a Monday
It's
and
a
it's
Monday.
the Monday blues, but we're gonna get through it. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to have you. Grateful that you made it back from Florida,
Thank you.
and that you're
Nice
able to
to
do
be
this
here.
episode.
Thanks.
Yeah. So really quickly, you are all things TE. Is that safe to say?
All things employment.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the areas of Clubhouse that I just have loved and cut my teeth in Clubhouse with employment. And so all things employment, I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
What I love about the clubhouse is that there's so many different areas that you can actually specialize in if you want to. There's so many different things. Like every day I'm reminded, like, do I even work here? Like there's certain things that I don't know that you don't think that you don't know until you're in a situation and you figure out you don't know it.
Right.
And
But
I'm
in the
like, oh my,
Clubhouse world, you figure it out,
you
right? That's
figure it
what Clubhouse
out.
is. Like
Yeah.
it works. It somehow works itself out in some
Mhm.
way or another. Yeah.
And thinking on your feet, it's pretty cool. But like I was saying, it's so easy. It's so cool that you can have different areas that you have your specialties in and that you were able to kind of dig your teeth into transitional employment or employment in general. So can you tell us a little bit about like what TE is and what how did it get started? Like is there a specific story behind it or?
It's kind of crazy. I've been in Clubhouse for almost 20 years and I was like mad dashing to try to see if I could remember like how TE got started,
Mhm.
back in the day. And so I pulled out all my articles from training and I was like, there's got to be something in here.
Yeah.
And there's not like on the history of TE, but what I could glean from it was that it essentially was created out of an opportunity for inclusivity. And that's really kind of cool because, we're in this day and age where inclusivity is so critically important. We're seeing it more. And back in the, days of early Fountain House and early Clubhouse, um, inclusivity probably wasn't as big of a deal. And now but Clubhouse has always just inherently been inclusive from the very beginning. So I think that we kind of were the pioneers in that way and like paved the way for always having inclusivity. But it was essentially started out of this need for inclusivity. It's the only employment model that I know where there's really no screening process in the form of resumes, cover letters, or interviews, which is clearly not how employment's typically done. But more of just a desire to work is all that is required from members to begin their TE journey. And that inclusivity also carries over to individuals that we know will maybe not likely obtain competitive employment in this moment due to
Mhm.
having vocationally significant challenges. Um, and so, and it was there to help those individuals overcome those vocationally significant challenges through intense support of the Clubhouse. So it's kind of interesting because, we have this in Clubhouse, we have TE, transitional employment, we have supported employment, we have independent employment, right? But if you think about it, and my mentor, Ralph Bilby, days of yore, he would say that transitional employment is the most supported of supported employment, if you think about it, because of how intensely the Clubhouse supports
Mhm.
individuals with in transitional employment. And it was
Yeah.
also created to help members that had had either no work history or challenging work history
Mhm.
have the opportunity to begin to rebuild and make to rebuild, in preparatory for more competitive employment and for future employment. So those are kind of the reasons why transitional employment was created. But like a specific story, I'm sure that my Clubhouse International colleagues will like scream at me later. They won't, but about like, hey, didn't you remember this? But I can't honestly remember like if there was a specific reason that it was created, other than, what we've already discussed, just that inclusivity and that need for individuals to have opportunities now that would, pave the way for bigger career opportunities later, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I appreciate your honesty, but you can't remember everything, so you're fine. But
Thanks.
but I'm glad that you did mention that it was born out of necessity, and like you said, it's very supported. I don't remember ever having a job where someone could just fill in for me if I called in sick, as far as, my support. Like my mom couldn't come and fill in a
Oh,
job
so
slot for me if
nice.
I couldn't. And so I feel like that's an awesome part about the TE, is that
Yeah.
if your member can't make it and you're supporting them, then you have to show up and work at Walgreens that day, for that 3 or 4 hour shift or however long your T is for. So I think it's pretty cool. And it really does, it gives our members some structure,
Mhm.
but without throwing them to the wolves, like, so for somebody who's never had a job before or has worked minimal jobs, it can be very scary.
Yeah,
And so
challenging.
I appreciate that supported transition.
Yeah. Well, and kind of back to the point you made about like coverage and having someone show up for you if you can't go to work. Like that's super unique, right? Nobody else does it but us. But I know that that's sometimes a challenge in clubhouses. Like if we're being really honest, that's a challenge when you have a clubhouse who's small or a clubhouse where you're short staffed for whatever reason, and then someone calls in and you got to go cover. I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, that's always kind of that groaning point of like, oh, I have to leave the work order day and go cover. But on the other side of things, like if you look at that's maybe a staff perspective, but on the members' perspective, I cannot tell you how many members have said to me, like, I wouldn't have even tried employment if I didn't know that there was this backup for me,
Yeah.
because of past history of being let go from jobs because of lack of attendance due to illness or whatever. And then on the employer side of things, some employers, and we're kind of seeing this a little bit more now, where maybe employers aren't seeing that absence coverage as much of a value benefit as it was maybe in the 80s or 90s.
Mm.
But some employers really do value knowing that, like, hey, someone's going to be there. Like, this is the one position I know of all my positions that someone
Mhm.
is going to be there and there's going to be that coverage.
Yeah.
And so I really think that I look at it from the member's perspective the most and try to put myself in their shoes and go, I can breathe easy, I can rest easy and still be successful at employment, even if I have a bad day or even if I struggle. So I know that absence coverage can be tricky, but I really, really like it. And I think
Mhm.
it's necessary to get our members to that next phase, right?
Yeah.
Not,
Yeah.
it's not like all the time, hopefully. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally get it. That's pretty cool. So I know we have TE is probably the most popular, one of the most popular things here that we have at the clubhouse, just as far as members being interest in it. And so members might think they're ready for a transitional employment, but some might not actually be prepared for it. How can a member be prepared for transitional employment?
Really, that's a really good question. And I think that it's, first of all, it's a right of membership. We talk about it in relation to the standards. The
Mhm.
standards has this preamble that says that the standards are rights of membership, and transitional employment is a standard, right? In our standards. So first of all, it's a right of membership. It's for any member who wants to try it. It's for any member who um, has that as a goal. And so I love that anybody can do it.
Mhm.
I think preparation is really based on it's really based on, relationships, if believe it or not. When I think about individuals that have gone back to work, it's a lot of it is based on the relationship that they have with the clubhouse and individuals there. And
Mhm.
it's not even like a staff to member relationship, because I think sometimes members are the most encouraging of each other to be able to say, like, hey, you're doing this, you're amazing cook and you cook this lunch incredibly well. Have you thought about working? Have you thought about, our food service TE, as preparation. I think that members coming and just having that desire to work. That's why
Yeah.
when we take in the standards about, we're not looking for past work experience or past education. We're simply looking for a desire to work.
Hmm.
Um, and then that desire is what it drives a member's, hopefully is driving a member's excitement and enthusiasm to go to work. Transitional employment's not intended to be a career, but rather just a stepping stone towards more significant vocational goals.
Hmm.
As far as preparation goes, as long as a member has a desire to work, that's all that needed. And I think that's really beautiful, because that's not common in the world of work, right? And then I mentioned that transitional employment is an opportunity for members to explore work with various employers and in different jobs so that when a member does look for more permanent employment, that their decisions can be based on broader experiences and more informed choice, which I love. Like, I think having that choice um, of what you want to do and kind of testing things out and, this is for me, this isn't for me is really a valuable part of it. So preparing, I think it's just, being actively engaged in the clubhouse, coming
Yeah.
in and demonstrating that desire to work, building relationships so that when it's that time, someone can come up to you and say, "Hey, I really think you're ready to go. I think
Hmm.
it's 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 time now." I mean, I can't tell you how many times I would sit next to members and we'd be working on something side by side, and then all of a sudden, like it popped into my head, "You've been coming to Clubhouse for X amount of years or months or whatever. Like, have you thought about trying this
Hmm.
PE or this job?" And
Yeah.
sometimes members they don't see themselves in it until we see themselves in it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh, you think I could?" And I promise you, it wasn't because I announced a TE opening in a house meeting somewhere and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
if you're interested, come find me." No one comes to find me. What
Hmm.
it is me going to find them and saying, like, "Look, you ran that meeting so well. I think you are ready to go out and explore what's happening in the world."
Yeah.
And so it's all about the relationships, I think, the desire to work in the relationships. And that's how I think members prepare for transitional employment. Just
Yeah.
the clubhouse, right?
Yeah, it gives them that reassurance. Because a lot of times members need that reassurance. Like, I'm needed here at the clubhouse. Sometimes things can come routine, but it goes back to our standards. Like, if you don't have members working the unit, then the work stops because we need them to be able to work side by side and get things done. And
Right.
so having them see themselves in the work is very important, and knowing that they can be supported, that and we see something that they might not be able to see. So um that's pretty cool. Also, I think in addition to the desire to work, also the desire to probably be able to listen and take constructive criticism as well as a part of it is and just when sometimes if you're doing something and someone tells you that you're doing something wrong or you're not doing it correctly, it could be, a little sting in the chest, as I like
Yeah,
to say sometimes, and so and being able to receive that constructive criticism, like, hey, you're doing great. I really appreciate you being here, but maybe do it like this a little bit better, and just kind of reassuring them. So being able to take that, I think, is an important part, a very
I
important
agree with
part.
you. And what you're describing is soft skills, which
Hmm.
I think, are I don't think I know are just as important as like those, I went to school for this particular study or this education. That's a hard skill. Like I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time, but soft skills are just as important. Things like being able to
Hmm.
take feedback, being to work on time, being a team
Hmm.
player, brainstorming, problem solving. And guess what? The clubhouse, we do all of that in the
Yeah.
clubhouse community, right? And so that's why I think clubhouses are the best places to prepare someone to go to work. Because if we
Mhm.
just go and engage in the clubhouse work order day, unless someone's like literally just sitting in the corner all the time,
Mhm.
they are going to be put
Engaged.
into those soft skills,
Yeah.
right? Because we do problem solve and brainstorm, and we do sometimes need people to be there on time, even though, it's voluntary. But that's
Mhm.
what I think is so critical about the clubhouse is that without even meaning to, soft skills are being learned. I think there was an article, I can't remember which one, in the colleague training manual, comprehensive training manual, where it was mentioned like, someone went in to make lunch and they started making lunch without washing their hands, right? And then another member said, "Hey, you can't make lunch. You got to wash your hands first, right?" We can sit there and teach that in a class, which is fine. Or we can do it with lived experience, like just
Mm,
walking into the kitchen and not knowing I needed to wash my hands. Well, my fellow member is going to tell me, hey, you got to wash your hands first before
yeah.
you start making lunch. But that's all soft skills. And I love that that's just done so organically.
Yeah.
It's not by sitting in a classroom, it's not by being in a workshop or in a class. And there's another one that an article that was mentioned that said like we can sit there and teach someone how to have self-esteem. And maybe that lands, or they can come to the clubhouse and participate and engage in things that are meaningful and purposeful and give us confidence. And then naturally, organically, the self-esteem comes from that. And I feel like that really equates to work as well. Like you can work in the clubhouse and prepare, and that's great. And we want that, right? We want people to feel confident by coming to the clubhouse. And then the next, natural step is let's take that confidence out into and put it into practice, into work.
Yeah.
Clubhouses are just that natural place for, I call them opportunity centers. They're just this natural place to be able to learn those soft skills and build the confidence and purpose that we need to then go out into the next, phase in our life, which hopefully is work.
Absolutely. Speaking of soft skills, how can we as clubhouses build relationships with businesses to help us with our TE programs?
I think that's a really great question, and that's a question that a lot of clubhouses ask.
Mhm.
Right off the bat, I love that you use the word relationships because one of the things that I get super irked about, and I'm starting to say it more publicly and vocally, is I'm sick and tired of hearing clubhouses say we're going to go pitch TE to a clubhouse, or we're going to go or to an employer, or we're going to go sell TE
Um,
to an employer. That's not what we're doing, and I mean, from experience, when I started TE development a billion years ago, right out of college, my supervisor said, "Yeah, we're going to go pitch TE to this, hospital."
mhm,
And that made me immediately go, I have to be a salesperson. I'm going to have to go sell something. I'm a social worker. I'm not a salesperson.
mhm.
And it freaked me out for a good long time until I really understood what I was doing, which was not that. It was um, what we should have been doing was we should have been building a relationship first.
Yeah.
And it's like our members in the clubhouse. It's no different. You cannot get someone to work side by side with you without having a genuine relationship. So the
Mhm.
example I always use is like if I want members to come wash dishes with me or answer the phones with me, if they don't know me, it's going to be a lot harder for me to convince them to come do that. They're going to tell me to kick rocks or whatever. Like, I don't know you. Like, why would I do that? There's no difference with the employer. So that's where it takes me to networking. So you ask like, how can we build relationships? Well, first of all, let's build relationships.
Mhm.
Secondly, we have to be able to like have some kind of a hopefully a network in order to do that. So I'm sure we've heard in training that like networking is the best way to build, to develop TEs and cold calling's least effective. And you can't build a relationship with someone, it's harder to without kind of having that
Yeah.
connection in.
Mhm.
So networking is what I would say. And how to do that is I'm a big fan of utilizing boards and advisory boards. They know people.
Mhm.
And so let's get them to go talk to who they know and start the conversation. If
Mhm.
it transpires into something else, great. But if not, at least we're starting the conversation. We're starting to build a relationship.
Mhm.
I was talking to at the World Seminar, we had an awesome speaker talk about he's an advisory board, he's a board member for Vincent House. He was the board president of the Chamber of Commerce, and he said, I married the two. So he took the Chamber of Commerce and said, hey, board of the Chamber, we need to develop a TE position for Vincent House. And I loved that he saw the vision of it. So he was a board member for both. So Chamber of Commerce is a good way, connecting with local Rotary is a good way to network. And then I always encourage clubhouses to like have open houses and just invite people in and try to do this organically.
Yeah.
Let's not do this in a way that feels like forced or pushed or
Mhm.
whatever. And then the other thing I have been a big fan of lately is encouraging clubhouses to support those businesses that they want to develop relationships
Oh,
with. So
yeah.
I call it reconnaissance missions.
Mm.
And what that is like, for example, there was a clubhouse in Wisconsin and they wanted to develop a TE at their local coffee shop bakery down the street. And
Mhm.
they're like, how do we get in? And I was like, go there on a social.
Mhm.
Like get some coffee and pastries and play
Yep.
games and hang out. Because what is telling them, make friends with the owner or the manager,
Mhm.
let them know who you are. We're just here to support you, but we also are just enjoying ourselves. Frequent like local businesses, like Clubhouses have to go grocery shopping, right, for meals every week. So start making friends with the manager or the owner of the grocery store and seeing if that eventually can't lead into a conversation around employment. Hey, we noticed that when we come, you're short on baggers all the time. Like we have members who are ready. Do you want to learn more about how we can, put
Mhm.
some of our members in as employees of your grocery store, right? These are just
Good
examples,
stuff.
but
I hope our listeners are writing stuff down.
I know, right? And then I just think it's, important to show that you support them, like financially as a consumer of their services or products. That's going to be more, they're going to be more willing to, listen to you. So those are the ways that I think we can build relationships with employers that are organic, that aren't forced, that are, we're two businesses that want to, support each other kind of thing. Those are how. And then a lot of times clubhouses will say, well, we did the employment development meeting and they're not really responding to us. So my thing is I'm a big fan of cookies, and Clubhouse Michigan knows this because I keep talking to them about this on a regular basis. So you've had the tea development meeting, right? And they're sitting there thinking about it, and we're really not sure. Take them some cookies. We have kitchens for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Afternoon, it's slow. Hop into our kitchen, make a couple dozen cookies, drop them off, made with love from our clubhouse to you. Hope you enjoy. Who doesn't want cookies at
Who
2 o'clock?
doesn't want cookies?
I
That would sway my vote.
all the time, right? But then it's also things like, so it's, or like say, hey, can you come in and speak to us at one of our employment dinners about your hiring methods
Yeah.
or, your history. So we're trying to still like follow up by building those
Hmm.
relationships. So Brianna, I love the fact that you use the word relationships because I want the listeners to know it's not a transactional thing. It is
It's
a
not.
partnership, right?
Yeah. And
So
it's it's
those are my suggestions and advice for building TE programs and relationships.
Yeah, those are great. Everything to me is a relationship, and I think that's another reason why I have the meeting with the guests prior to us being on camera because we kind of build up a rapport. You kind of get a vibe of who each other are, or like, how you speak, and okay, how can I navigate this episode, or just getting to know you. And so we're not on the podcast, not just being kind of awkward. And
Yeah.
so everything is just a relationship to me, and making people feel comfortable, and this is in keeping that, I guess, that open commitment, or that open communication. There we go.
I love
I don't know
that.
where my brain is this morning. It's a
It's
Monday
Monday,
for
remember?
sure. Or it is. It is. Okay, Amber, lastly, what's next for transitional employment, or what's next for Clubhouse International?
Wow. Okay. Well, I can tell you what's next for transitional employment for sure. And a little bit about, kind of in your state specifically, but transitional employment. For me, my goal is that I would like to find some time to go and connect with large national employers. And I don't know how successful I'll be at this, but we've had some success in the past with like connecting with TJ Maxx on a national level. The goal there is to help the national, like, higher ups in HR or higher ups in the, administration of these national employers understand what a great partnership we could have. There's clubhouses all over the nation and all over the world that have places like Walmart and Target and Home Depot and in their community. And wouldn't it be nice to be able to be a clubhouse in, Dearborn, Michigan that has a Home Depot down the street, and we've made this connection on a large national scale to go and say, hey, you know about Clubhouse International. We're a local clubhouse in your community. Can we partner for employment? So that's a goal. I don't know how that'll look, but that's a goal I want to do. If I get them to talk to me and they come to the table, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're starting to have conversations around is virtual TEs because we're in this post-pandemic world where remote work is way more prevalent than, most than it used to be. Some clubhouses are starting to ask questions about if we had it, what would it look like? How would we, have that work? So that's a beginning discussion question. We want to make sure that still aligns with the standards, but that we're not, turning ourselves away from potential opportunity. And then Clubhouse International kind of, I can tell you in California, the goal is to start building more clubhouses in California. Clubhouse International became what they call Center of Excellence with California to support growth and strength of Clubhouses, the current ones, and then try to build more. So that's very, very, very new. We don't have a ton of details around that yet, but we do know we are a center of excellence. And so the goal there is to just really make Clubhouse a big, very prevalent in
Yeah.
California. So
Yeah.
we're excited to see over the next 3 to 5 years
Yay.
what happens, but the hope is more clubhouses than ever.
Mhm.
And I appreciate all the work that the California clubhouses are doing, and how dedicated and committed you all are. And we saw that at the World Seminar too. So
Yay. I'm glad we were
yeah.
well represented.
You were. So that's kind of the plan. Hopefully, TE's moving forward. Well, fingers crossed, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. This is all great stuff. Amber, we can talk on and on and on about
We
TE and
could.
about clubhouses. Me and Alex did a lot of talking about clubhouses, me and Jack as well. So it's just such an exciting environment, and I hope it grows, and I hope to see it becoming more of a household name because that'll be awesome.
Yeah, me too.
Amber, before we wrap up the episode, is there anything else you want to let us know? You want to tell us about? You want to leave with us?
I would just say continue to raise the bar with employment, the listeners. Employment is just a human right at this
Yeah.
point, and I'm so passionate about it, and I really, really want us to raise that bar, raise the expectation that we know that our members can work. Everyone that walks in the door is capable, and it's on us to identify the capacity and then really um, take that and hone in on that and really help the members to see what they're made of. And so I really just want to encourage anyone listening, especially if you're in a clubhouse, raise that expectation, believe in the capacity of the members. They won't let us down.
Right
So
on.
that's all
Well,
for me.
thank you, Amber, so much for being a part of this episode.
Thank
And
you,
this has been
Brianna.
another episode of Connected, and we are out of here. See you guys later.
Bye.